I'm going to show you a few examples of resultant shapes and relief shapes in Tlingit and Northern Northwest Coast native art. In a dorsal fin, you might have a circle. This is a hole in the dorsal. We have the outline of the circle on the top side. Here we have a split U. And where the split U meets the circle, the negative space that would be carved out, shallow carving. Some people call it a trineg or a trigon. That is not the primary shape. It's a result of the circle and split U connecting. And then down here on the bottom side, might have a U shape. And I just drew, I made these lines here fairly light because I wanted to show you the other shape I would maybe have here. So we have the outline of the circle. And we have this U shape that meets a circle. And to show that this was a circle, we would carve in these crescents. And then when you went to paint this, this would all be painted. This would all be painted. Hopefully you got an idea of that. So here we end up with the circle as a relief, crescent as a relief, and what people call a trigon as a relief. They're not primary shapes. They're a result of other shapes coming together. Here's another way that you might get the one that people call a trigon. You might see in a bentwood box a shape like this, which this might be an ovoid. And then next to that ovoid, you might have this will be the inside of an ovoid. And then coming down to this ovoid, we're going to add an L shape. So this is primary. This is primary. And then we're adding this L shape. And it's coming down and attaching to that primary shape, ovoid. So this would be painted, painted, and then this negative area that is formed from these three shapes coming together, that's a negative area, and that's what people call the trigon or trineg. I know there's some other names for it, but it's a result of these primary shapes coming together. It's not a primary shape, it's a negative space. Another use of a relief might be on the head of a creature. So might have the beak, and in the beak we have a U shape, and I'm just drawing that so you can see where there might have been a U shape. Probably a little heavier. And to show that this U shape is separated from this added on shape here, you might have a crescent to relieve that big thick area, or you might have a circle. Those are not positive shapes, they're negative shapes as a relief. Another spot that you'll see the result of other shapes coming together might be on a bentwood box up in a corner. So imagine that was the top corner of a bentwood box, and then you might have a U shape that's coming down here. That's a primary. Could be a secondary. You will see it in red and in black. And then up here in the corner, it's running out of bounds off of this space, but you might have what is like, I think of it as being the bottom corners of ovoids that are resting on top of this other shape. So what you end up with is where you have this primary shape in red or black, and then we'll just imagine that there was this ovoid that ran out of bounds here, and it just came into this corner of this bentwood box. and you have a resulting shape that's a negative space, again, that trigon shape. And you might see this in, well, this isn't exactly how it would be, but just imagine that's the bottom of whatever shape that might be. And let's say there was another ovoid-like shape in here, and it came over and met the side of the bentwood box here. So you have your ovoid or whatever it might be up here, and then another ovoid-like shape here that it's resting on top of. And then I like to think of things as being real elastic, but let's say this came down, was pushed into the corner by this ovoid, and then started to push back out into the shape, into this area here, into this negative area. And then it got pushed back in by this ovoid down here. So you end up with this connector shape here between that runs along the outside of this box. It's being pushed over by this shape here and this shape here, but it's still a primary shape done in black. And this is primary. And this is primary. So you end up with another negative resultant space of several other shapes. And so you might consider this to be a trigon also. There's a lot of other examples if you look for them. The idea here is that the shape that people call a trigon, a circle, a crescent, they're either a resulting shape from the primaries coming together, or they're a relief to reduce the heavy space. They are not randomly placed on a design. And unlike co-Salish work, you can't just place them wherever you want. And they are not a primary part of the design. They're a negative space.